If you've read the title of this video, you're probably a musician, and like me, you will have at some point faced writer's block. Trust me, I've been there. I've been sat there in front of my DAW, trying to come up with ideas. Even the ideas I'm coming up with, I'm just not happy with.
Is this shit ass?
Or I can't even come up with the ideas in the first place. And there's nothing more terrifying than it, spending hours upon hours, days trying to come up with ideas, and you simply just can't think of anything. You can't get anything down, and more importantly, tracks aren't getting finished. If this sounds like you, then that's exactly what this video is going to talk about. I wrote a paper on this topic, and we're going to talk about why do we hit this creative wall, and how can we overcome it. So, we need to start with a bit of context. What is writer's block? Let's give it an actual definition. So I've got a paper from Rose here from 1984, and he defines writer's block as the inability to begin or continue writing for reasons other than a lack of basic level skill or commitment. He goes on further to explain that it's a passage of time with limited productivity involving a creative task, with behaviours such as missing deadlines, feelings of anxiety and frustration all associated. Writer's block isn't just a dry spell, it's a creative paralysis. You'll have the tools, you'll have the skills, but the ideas won't come. And like me, sometimes they will come, but you hate them.
This shit might be ass.
So, it's not laziness, like people say. It's not a lack of talent, like people say. It's almost this fear, this anxiety, and to some extent, procrastination. And sometimes writer's block even shows up differently in people, For myself, it looks like unfinished loops. For other people, there's just no inspiration. For other people, they don't want to sound like other people, so they don't even make things in the first place. So there's no one real set way of writer's block showing up. But writer's block even happens to the best of us. Marvin Gaye claims to have suffered it after his hit record, What's Going On, in 1971. And Philip Peterson, a songwriter who's worked with A-list artists like Ed Sheeran, says writer's block is down to a lack of an established process, and that creatives are being too precious with their compositions and should write first and then release. Now, I do agree with that personally. I do think it's not our jobs as creatives to truly sit there and decide, right, this is good enough, this is not. Your job is to sit there, write the music, and let the people judge. But it's not that easy sometimes. So this video will explore that more. Now that we've even defined writer's block, the inability to create without basic level skill or a lack of time and commitment, let's talk about some of the reasons as to why we face writer's block. A lot of the times as musicians, we want things to be perfect, and we sort of fear being judged if it's not perfect. And along that way, we forget to enjoy the creative process because we've tied our identity so much to music making that when we're not truly into it or enjoying it, or we feel like we have to meet certain expectations, you lose yourself. And it's so important to have a purpose within music. Why do you even sit down? Why did you even start? Sometimes you need to look back into that. As I progressed in my career and had more writer's block, one thing I realised is I wasn't scared of making the music. I was scared of making something bad. So I've got a paper here from Landman in 2016. He found a positive correlation between writer's block, anxiety, perfectionism, and a fear of evaluation. And qualitative data revealed that writers often feel blocked when balancing other commitments or face technical challenges. So, perfectionism is not helpful. Thinking about what other people think of you is not helpful. Because what these things do is apply external forces to an internal satisfaction. And that is where we need to separate it. We need to think what is coming from the outside world and what is making the inner world tick. When you can really tap into what makes your inner world tick in front of FL Studio, in front of Ableton, and you can feed that and feed that and feed that, you'll be unstoppable. But that is so hard to do when you're letting things from the outside world get in there. So create that separation and truly tap into what internally made you even want to make music. Sometimes we can get imposter syndrome. Sometimes we don't even know, as I said before, we don't have a purpose when we're sitting down. So I think in terms of the purpose, really, what do you like? Who inspires you? what are you good at? What are you not so good at? Obviously, it's important to work on the things you're not good at, but the things you are good at, let your wings shine. You know, that's not even the fucking saying, is it? Spread your wings and fly and sort of express yourself creatively. And in terms of imposter syndrome, a lot of the times we don't think we deserve the success we have achieved, but we're not the ones to judge that. And I think I'd say imposter syndrome, I'm not truly myself someone who knows how to deal with it the best. But one thing I can say is that you are not the judge. Let other people be the judge before you judge. Your job is just to create. As I'm saying about the external pressures as well, there are people in your circle who might either have really, really high expectations of you or just criticize you unwillingly. And you need to block all of that out. You need to accept, right, what can I do? What can I do on a day-to-day basis that suits my life, that can get me realistic, achievable goals within music? Because everyone has a life outside of music, and you need to be able to balance. I will admit, those who are relentless and those who spend every single waking hour on music are the ones who are going to make it. But life is a long journey. Music is a long journey. You can't just expect to blow up overnight, and you need to make music enjoyable for yourself. And if that means working around your schedule outside of music, then fucking do it. Because I promise you right now, when you have that pressure of trying to meet up to either other people's standards or this ridiculously high standard you set yourself, you're going to hate it. I've hated it doing that. I've listened to the people around me, and it just doesn't push you creatively. And finally, social media, the biggest killer of all joy about, you know, what do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy, and social media is a platform for comparison. So please, try to zone out of social media first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Try to zone out of social media before the studio. Try to zone out of social media just after the studio. Be happy with what you come out of the studio with, and be happy with what you're going into the studio with. Don't let social media wobble you. Those are some of the things, those are some of the internal and external pressures that I sort of found out in my paper. But what did we truly find? What does the academic research say? Let's have a look. So the first point, chasing perfect productivity kills creativity. Let go of structure and embrace creativity. Gallet and Rose both highlight the importance of a heuristic mindset opposed to an algorithmic mindset. And musicians who treat creativity like problem solving rather than a fluid process are prone to blockages. So the key word there being fluid. Heuristic kind of means intuitive, trial and error, and algorithmic is more rigid and rule based. So when you're making music, you truly want to be fluid. You don't know what's going to come next. You might have an idea in your head of how a tune's going to start, but that's not how the tune's going to end. So you need to adopt this heuristic, fluid mindset if you truly want to try and get past your writer's block. And more importantly, enjoy the process and accept creativity for what it is. It's not linear. Secondly, we've got Ahmed in 2019. They reinforced this, showing perfectionism and over-planning often paralyze progress. So again, going back to what I said before, no track is ever perfect. Perfectionism is what's going to kill your workflow. So accept that nothing you make is perfect. Accept that your tracks are always going to be 90 to 95% there. And get them finished, get them moved on. There's nothing wrong with coming back a week later and adding that extra 5%. But if perfectionism is putting a halt to your process, get rid of it and replace it for the heuristic fluidity of being a creative. And don't overplan either. You never know what's going to happen when you're making a tune. You might start wanting to sound like a Fuse tune and it ends up being more of a, you know, percussive Marco Carola kind of sounding tune. So embrace it. It's your creativity that's shining through in those moments. Don't try and fight it because of what other people are saying and what social media wants you to make and what's blowing up on TikTok. Make what you want to make and make what comes to you naturally. And finally, perfectionism and fear of judgment leads to over-analysing and kind of avoiding starting. This is what Landman 2016 found. So again, perfectionism is just not helpful for creatives. And more importantly, thinking about what others think of your music is just going to make you avoid the process entirely. You know, no one's going to come into the studio for you and sit down and make a song for you. So if you're going to worry about those people judging you, then you're a fucking idiot.
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Fucking idiot. But we all do it. It all happens to the best of us. The creative flow requires freedom from judgment. So don't let these distractions get in the way. Don't let these external factors get in the way. Let's move on to the next point. Reaching a flow state with music only happens when you're free from judgment and you're immersed in it. So chase the fun, chase the creativity and curiosity, not the results. So what do the studies say? Generally, the studies show that creative flow requires freedom from judgment. Distraction, lack of sleep, and pressure kills that flow, especially for musicians. So hopefully I don't butcher his name here. Byron and Kazanchi, 2011, argued that anxiety competes with creativity for mental resources and disrupts flow state. So if any of you lot know what flow state is, it's kind of where how difficult a task is meets perfectly with how good you are at a task. And when you can achieve that, that's when flow state happens. And it happens to athletes, it happens to musicians, any creatives, even when you're working, you can achieve flow state. Anxiety kind of gets in the way of that. So if you're feeling anxious going into the studio, you have social anxiety, you have general anxiety, you know, anxiety is going to get in the way. So you truly do need to, first of all, look at yourself and look at your mental health and go, is this affecting my creativity? If it is, then you need to find a way to help yourself. But if your anxiety kind of isn't as serious as a mental health condition, and it is it's kind of more based around the studio, you sort of need to make the studio a comfortable environment for yourself. That way, when you're in a comfortable environment and you're not as anxious, you can unlock that part of your brain and the ideas will come way more naturally. Let's look at another paper. Landman 2016 and Hassan 2001 found that negative self-talk, low self-esteem and external pressure blocks the flow state. So creators with higher self-worth were more productive and creative. Again, don't listen to the noise. Don't listen to the people around you who are telling you, you have to do this, you have to do that. You're not good enough for doing this. You could do better. Because the reality is a lot of us could do better, and that's true. But if that mindset or that talk is affecting you negatively, then don't listen to it. Do what you can. Try and push yourself. Always try and push yourself with music. You don't want to be mediocre. Always try and push yourself. But if pushing yourself too hard is burning you out or it's making your self-esteem low as a musician, take a step back and go back to being creative, even if it means you're not really making much progress with finishing tracks. If you can get back into a creative flow that you enjoy and you feel better about yourself, then that is what will get you further in the long run, as opposed to finishing tracks because you feel like you have to, and other people will just put you down for not finishing that many tracks. Furthermore, Drew et al. 2011 introduced the dual pathway model to creativity, showing that a moderate state of anxiety/arousal can boost creativity and originality, but too much kills it. So, things like deadlines, things as sort of having those tiny little guidelines and boundaries around you that sort of say, all right, yeah, if you don't achieve this, then it's not a job well done. Those subtle things can actually help your creativity because it sort of switches your brain in gear a little bit and goes, right, there's a task here to be achieved. And if I don't achieve it by this time, by this standard, then it's not good enough. And that feeling of not being good enough can either make you or break you. So set it up so that it makes you. Don't let it be something that breaks you. Finally, sometimes the best thing to do is stop, move, breathe, and come back with a fresh energy. Because the more we force it, the harder it gets. So if we can take a sec to stop, go for a walk, take breaks, exercise, even taking a break from a project, this is probably the most effective way to deal with a creative block, and that is kind of what Ahmed 2019 found. Furthermore, Landman 2016 echoed this, arguing that exercise and reframing one's mindset help writers reset creatively. So, sometimes going for a walk, sometimes going to the gym, these things can help you with writer's block on a more subtle level, on a more day-to-day level, but genuinely enjoying making music and being happy with the small wins and pushing yourself and being happy that you pushed yourself, rewarding yourself on a mental basis as well as maybe a more physical basis, a more real life basis. These things will help you get over writer's block. Don't think you're being too easy on yourself, because if being easy on yourself helps you be more creative, then that is going to get you further in the long run. Mayo 2018 showed that even simple guidelines or a new approach reduced anxiety in children composing music, suggesting that environment and structure can nudge creativity. Again, those deadlines, having a workflow, having a rough plan, these things can help you move forward. I always live by it. Having that workflow is truly what will help artists define their own sound. So, look at your music making process. Even if you don't know the music making process entirely, look at a finished track, reference it, pick it apart by pieces, and then use those pieces as a timeline for how you should write music. Because even the simplest, smallest plan that may stray away will get the ball rolling. And once the ball is rolling, it snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And finally, going back to De Drew et al., changing emotional or physical states even slightly affects idea generation positively. So, let's say we're in the studio with our friends and we're having a laugh, as opposed to being in the studio by yourself, talking negative about yourself. There's a difference there. You're feeling positive emotions, and it's likely that you are going to be more creative when you're feeling in a better mood. Furthermore, physical states. Let's talk about, you don't just have to go to the studio. You don't just have to produce in your room. Why not go to a coffee shop? Why not go to a library, uni library, even on the bus? Changing where you're producing, changing that environment, that can have such a big effect on your creativity. And generating ideas is an easy and a fun and a creative thing. And if you can tap into that and make that so enjoyable that the steps after that become really easy and effortless, then you're onto a winner, truly. Now that we've gathered what the research sort of says, let's talk more about the ways we can truly get around it and sort of break the block. But first of all, how does writer's block feel for those? So let's say you've never had writer's block before, or you do and you kind of want reassurance. Writer's block feels like anxiety, frustration, doubt, anger. For me, I get quite envious, and I know it's not a good thing, but it's true. This is what happens. We feel all these things, and it's okay. It's fine. You know, you're not guilty for burning out through music. You're not guilty for having self-doubt. You're not guilty because you feel like you can't do it today. The only way you should be guilty is if you're not even trying. Because if you're at least trying, you are better than 99% of people who want to be doing what you are doing. So if you're not quite loving this thing that you once used to love, it's fine. Because I've been there. But ask yourself, why did I love making music? Why did I get into it? And tap into that more. Tap into that creativity. Tap into that reason why you even started. Because without that, it's all downhill from there without that. And not to mention, you know, things outside of your life as a musician can come in and affect you. You should try your best not to let these things affect you and let making music sort of be your escape. But sometimes these things are hard to ignore, and when these things really need to be dealt with, that's when we need to take a step back from music and go, right, I'm going to go deal with this other thing in my life, come back to it, and then we can crack on, and then we can start getting the ball rolling. Because a lot of the times, the hardest thing to do is get the ball rolling. And if things are stopping you getting the ball rolling, other than yourself, you need to address those things. Because it's so easy to address yourself and go, right, I am being lazy, I am procrastinating. But when it's not those things, you need to see the bigger picture. So what are some ways that we can truly break the block and take practical approaches to getting over writer's block? Well, the first one, change your process. So if you start with the drums and your bass, maybe start with the samples, maybe start with a loop, maybe start with a vocal. Start with things that you wouldn't usually start with. And even having a folder, Bernsky talks a lot about this in his community. So having a folder full of idea starters and tune starters, so like loops you like, samples you like, vocals you like, this takes one step out of the process that will hinder your creativity, and it just gets the ball rolling. So yeah, change your process, change things up, start with different things, and you'll find that the creativity in your brain is now unlocked or you can at least tap into it a bit more now that you're not in this rigid way that you're always getting blocked with. Secondly, as we talked about before, setting guidelines and limits is truly what can help unlock creativity and meet sort of creative demands that you have. So let's say we do one track a week. So you say, right, every week I'm going to finish one track, whether it's good, whether it's bad, you finish one track a week. That will help you be more productive, learn the creative process better, learn how you work to deadlines better. And more importantly, you're just going to be more satisfied with what you are left with. Because yeah, some tracks might take longer than a week to finish, but if you're saying, right, I can only finish this track in a week, and you're setting that limit, your brain now switches from being lazy and sort of, we'll figure this out along the way, which obviously going with the flow helps, but you also need to know when to go, right, let's flip it back to algorithmic sort of, I don't want to say algorithmic, but need to know when, go back to your plan, stop going on these tangents and start going, right, this is the direction we're going to go in. Let's get it finished. Let's get it done. Let's not bother about how it is and let's move on. Because there's nothing saying that in a week's time you can't come back. So yeah, time limits, deadlines. Let's say you only spend an hour doing your loop, and then you spend another hour making more variations of like your hooks and stuff. These are all really good ways of setting limits. This is probably the most important one. Be comfortable with creating bad music. Create badly on purpose, and in that you will remove the pressure of having to make a banger every single time. Because a lot of the times when we think we have to make a banger every single time we get in the studio, we set ourselves such a high expectation that can just never be met. So get rid of that. Turn on the tap as Ed Sheeran, roll the clip.
I watched him and was like, I want to do that one day, and wrote a million songs, did a million gigs. You view it as a dirty tap. When you switch a dirty tap on, it's going to flow shit water out for a substantial amount of time, and then clean water is going to start flowing, and now and then you'll get a bit of shit, but as long as it gets out of you, it's fine. So with songs, you're going to write shit songs at the beginning. My songs were terrible, but I got it out of me, and the more and more you write, the more and more you experience, and then you start flowing clean water, and songs start getting better and better and better, and when you're on a good streak, you're writing good songs, now and then you're going to write a shit song, and that song is out of you and you can move on.
So yeah, turn on the tap, let the bad music flow, create it, finish it, because not every single track you make has to get played in a club by fucking Marco Carola. Sometimes you make tracks just to get over the hurdle. Sometimes you make tracks to get back on the horse. I've made countless tracks to get back on the horse, and it's okay. I'm sat here saying it's okay to do that. So be comfortable with making bad music. You might even need to change your environment. As we spoke before, changing your environment can truly help with unlocking creativity. So yeah, you might need to start producing in different places, different spaces, even in your living room. Even just as simple as going to your living room from your bedroom can unlock some more creativity. And finally, rest and detach. Take a week off music. Don't even think about anything music related, and just unwind. And don't put any pressure on yourself, and just sort of be like, right, okay, if I do absolutely nothing this week to do with music, that's fine, because I'm allowing myself the mental space and the physical space to reset. And you know what? Even little things like quantity leads to quality, these little mindset shifts can sort of help with understanding how to progress, because the more music you make, the better you get at the music process, and the better you get at the music process, the higher the quality of your tracks. Because a lot of the times we think the longer you spend on a track, the better it will be, but that's not always the case. Obviously, don't rush your tracks and don't put no time and effort into it, but understand when it's time to stop perfecting and start progressing. And sometimes even your tracks might just have the function of just being a track you finish, to practice the music making progress. It's like the process. It's like going to the gym. You can't just train your shoulders and expect your whole body to be like Mike Mensa. No, you have to train each body part equally, and you have to make sure that each body part is getting stimulated regularly. So if you're someone who can't finish tracks to practice that process of getting to the end of a track. If you struggle to mix down, practice mixing down more. If you struggle with ideas, make more ideas. Practice the areas you are weak at. Get better at those, because the only way you're going to be able to get better and for it to stick is not just by watching a video, but applying what you've learned in the video. But if you don't practice all the steps, how can you expect to be good at the entire thing? And finally, let's sort of redefine what success looks like as a musician. Because a lot of the times we think success is getting signed to big labels, getting plays off big DJs, but success can be as small and as simple as sitting down for an hour each day and making music. If you can set yourself small goals that you can be proud of every single day, I promise you will go so far. Because this happened to me recently. I was so unhappy with my music making process because I set myself ridiculously high expectations. But when I took a step back and went, all right, how can I make music work for me? How can I make success achievable? That's when I started to enjoy it more. So little things such as every single day, if I sit down and I work on music for an hour, that's success. Every single week, if I finish one tune, that's success. Every single month, if I come out with 4 songs, that's success. Doesn't matter the little in-betweens and all that little sort of stuff. Are the tracks good? Are they getting downloaded? Are they getting signed? It doesn't matter. The important thing is you set achievable goals and you hit those goals, because once you start hitting the first goal, the next goal, the next goal, the next goal, and I promise you, you will enjoy the process so much. And celebrate the act of creating. You know, celebrate the fact that you're even skilled enough that you can sit down and you can write a song, because there's a lot of people out there who wish they could write music but they can't. So enjoy it, embrace it. Sometimes finishing a track and coming back to it a week later, that's still progress. Finding your own workflow, even though it may be slow, but it works for you, that's still progress. Finding your own workflow is how you find your own sound, and you can't rush finding your own sound. So take your time with this stuff, man. Don't rush it. Don't be in a rush to make it. Don't be in a rush to make these tracks. Don't be in a rush to get signed to these labels. In a sense, you do kind of want to not dilly-dally with the music making process, but everything beyond that, you can't rush because you'll just be unhappy. But guys, what does music mean to you? Think about that. That's what I want you to take away from today. What does music mean to you? Because once you figure that out and you tap into that every single time you sit down in front of your DAW, that is what will push you beyond all these hurdles. That is what will truly make you enjoy being a producer. And you know, it's not always just about sitting down and grinding. Sometimes even little things like getting a rough arrangement and coming back to it a week later once you've worked on other things, that is still progress. Progress doesn't always look like forcing yourself to finish music, and it doesn't always look like grinding. You know, this grindset that social media has created makes us feel like if we're not coming out with if we're not at our best 100% of the time, then we are failures. That's not true. How much percent you can put in fluctuates, but consistency is what matters. But a lot of the times, writer's block is not a flaw. It's a message. It shows that there's things going on internally or externally that you need to address first. And a lot of the times, especially for me, it was my process, the way I was making music, not having a clear workflow, and finally, chasing validation from other people. Chasing validation from social media, chasing validation from my producer friends, chasing validation from labels and DJs. This will keep you in a hole of self-hatred and not enjoying music. So get rid of the validation, first of all. Try and find a consistent workflow. And if you don't know what that looks like, maybe copy someone else's or analyze a tune and pick it into pieces. But you need to know what comes next when making music, from beginning till the end. But if you're stuck and you don't really know what to do, reach out to me. I'm here, man, and I will help you guys out. You're not alone. You're human just like me, and I've gone through these things, so I'm here to help you guys. But yeah, thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you lot have enjoyed. Remember, writer's block is not the enemy. It's almost a signal that you need to listen to, and you need to sort of go, right, where does this come from? How can I address it? If you guys want any more advice or need to speak to someone about your writer's block, then just drop me a message, leave a comment. Follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram. You know, I'm posting quite a lot on TikTok recently. So if you've got any more ideas for video essays, let me know. I'm more than welcome to it, because I'm running out of assignments. I'm running out of assignments to actually make interesting videos on. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. More music coming soon, and more of these video essays coming soon. So yeah, peace. Fucking hell.